Can you imagine your name is on a trophy with Bobby Jones, Arnold Palmer, Jack Nicklaus? I could go on, but that's a pretty good start, isn't it?
This is amazing. This is a dream come true.
Pretty much the top 2 or 3 best players in the world to ever play this game are on there. It always puts a smile on my face that I'm going to join them and no one can take it away from me.
When I look back at trophies that I've won, my kids will ask me, Daddy, which one do you cherish the most? Well, the U.S. Amateur.
Tiger won it 3 times, that's up with Phil, and then all these great players in the history of golf.
Yang Hoon An has a spot on the Havemeyer Trophy alongside all those great names.
I woke up one morning and it was right above my bed, and turned around and looked at it, and the name that stuck out to me was Francis Wilmette, and seeing his name on there was pretty special.
I first qualified for the amateur in 1955. I was 15 years old. First met Bob Jones at that time. He spoke at our banquet that evening. The U.S. Amateur became something very special to me.
I take tremendous pride in being a former amateur champ, and I put it as highest regards of any other tournament that I've ever won.
Phil Mickelson, United States Amateur Champion.
This is the U.S. Amateur Championship. This is the ultimate here, and you're not a top amateur unless you win the U.S. Amateur. That's just the bottom line.
It's a physical test, it's a mental test. It's one of those things where you get to see how you really stack up.
When I won, it gave me the confidence in my game that I needed to go on in golf.
We don't get this opportunity to play for a national crown very often. And when that opportunity comes, it makes you feel special that you have a chance to win our nation's title.
3 straight U.S. Amateur Championships for Tiger Woods.
For the amateurs, I mean, the U.S. Amateur is the biggest tournament there is. Until the day I die, they can always announce me as the U.S. Amateur Champion.
Sometimes, the best stories in golf aren't found on tour. You'll find them at the back of the range. And here's your host, Ben Adelberg.
If that doesn't get you excited for the United States Amateur, I don't know what will. Just listening to how much the USAM means to guys like Sutton, Nicklaus, Phil, and Tiger, after all of the majors that they've won in their careers, pretty special stuff. So why did that montage play before the usual opening theme music for the Back of the Range Golf podcast? Well, because I have an exciting announcement to share with you all. I'm pleased to announce that I will be at the United States Amateur at Bandon Dunes in Oregon next week. No, I won't be playing. That's very nice if you thought that was my big announcement. Instead, I'll be joining the USGA as a special USAM contributor to their coverage of the 120th US Amateur. I'll be on site for the practice rounds, stroke play sessions, and the entire match play portion until a champion is crowned on Sunday, August 16th. I'll be bringing you inside the ropes access with photos, videos, quotes, interviews, and my own personal account of the action during the most competitive and strongest field in the history of this championship. Remember, this is an all-exempt field due to the coronavirus pandemic. No qualifiers were held for this year's championship. If you're following the Back of the Range on social media, keep doing so, because I'll post content on my social media channels from start to finish. But if you don't already, now would be a good time to make sure you're following the USGA on their social media channels, because some of my content that I gather during the week will appear there as well. Many great people at the USGA helped make this opportunity for me a reality. In my conversations with them over the last couple of weeks, it has clearly been an all-hands-on-deck mission to make sure that the USAM and the Women's Amateur were contested this year. And I'm thrilled to contribute to the coverage and the narrative from Bandon Dunes. So that's the news. I'll post this information on my social media channels very soon, but I wanted you, the hardcore listeners and subscribers to the Back of the Range Golf podcast, to know this first. Thank you for your support of this podcast and the interest in amateur golf, because this does not happen without listeners like you. Don't forget, links to all of the social media channels and every previous episode here at the Back of the Range can be found on the website, thebackoftherange.com. Now, yesterday was actually a first. I posted a special episode, a Sunday conversation with the new Western Amateur champion Pearson Coody from the University of Texas. After making the top 16 to go to match play after 72 grueling holes of stroke play, he captured the title and is one of the favorites heading into the USAM. Another clear favorite is Mac Meissner from SMU. He recently captured the 2020 Southern Amateur Championship, and he's my guest on this episode of The Back of the Range. Mac Meissner is just flat out impressive. Humble, honest, and very transparent about his game, his goals, and how he handles his business. This kid works hard on the golf course and in the classroom. Two-time All-American, he holds the SMU record for single-season scoring average, and he has a 4.0 GPA. Hard to get into too much trouble when you have all that going for you. This is a bit of a lengthy episode, but it is filled with incredible stories and great insight into one of the best collegiate players in the country. So let's get started. Mac, welcome to the Back of the Range. How are you?
Great. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Well, got to get out of the way. It's July 25th. Like to let our listeners know when we're recording because, as you know and everyone else knows, things change from day to day in this world. But we can safely report that you are the 2020 Southern Amateur Champion. Let's get that out of the way also.
Yeah.
There's basically a grand slam of tournaments, so to speak, this summer for the top collegiate players and mid-ams and senior ams to play in that would get them a berth into the U.S. Amateur at Bandon Dunes. That's the North-South Am that Tyler Strafasi won, and the Southern is all yours. Preston Summerhays just picked up the Sunny Hannah this past weekend, and then you're on the way to the Western Amateur before going to Bandon Dunes. So let's talk about the last few months for what you've been doing. Obviously, the state of your game is pretty damn good, but how have you got your game into that condition with really nothing to play in?
Yeah, honestly, I'm not sure. I think
good answer. Way to start off with a bang. I love it. Love it.
Yeah. So, I mean, honestly, yeah. After we got shut down mid-March, I took a little bit of time off. Just kind of went around, hung out with my buddies. I stayed up in Dallas for about 3-4 weeks. Just finished up my school, and just kind of had a good time. Kind of got my mind off of golf. Practiced a little bit, but I think for the most part, I just kept it light and just spent a lot of time with the people I love and care about. And I think that was really nice to be able to take that time off and not, because spring season it's a grind, and we had already had two straight tournaments back to back. So to be able to take that time off and not really focus so much on my game was really cool. As much as it sucks that we got cut off for the season, I mean, it was a blessing in disguise. I was able to kind of around mid-May, I picked up my game, picked up my clubs again, and started grinding really hard with my coach, Brian Gathright, back home. And right after we finished school. And that's kind of where I started, working hard, kind of fixing the things that I hadn't loved in my game, starting out in the spring season. My swing had gotten super short, like outrageously short.
Okay.
And so me and Brian really just worked for like 4 straight weeks on literally just trying to get my swing longer. Because of that, it took about a whole 2 or 3 months. I mean, 2 months probably to get it kind of where we wanted it. And actually, luckily, picked up like 7 or 8 miles an hour of club speed, which was really cool to see that pay off. And
sure.
So that was nice. And be able to take that time off really helped a lot for sure.
So you basically, I mean, you were really trending in a nice direction this spring. I mean, I think the last tournament you played was Southern Highlands out there in Vegas, and came in 4th place there. So obviously you're playing good, and then you shut it down. I mean, is it fair to say that there just comes a time where just the repetitive tournament schedule, travel schedule, got to take care of classes and all that? I mean, I guess you could find yourself in just areas where you just kind of get lost.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, there's just so much going on in the college circuit, especially in the spring. Cause I mean, there could be 3 straight weeks where we just go back to back to back. And, I'm missing 6-7 days of school in 3 weeks. I mean, that's a lot of school. And, in my classes, I mean, each day you miss, you feel like you miss an entire, 2 chapters.
Sure.
So, it's a grind. I mean, you go to these tournaments and you come back, you have to take basically almost 2 days off, just try and get back caught up in school, take the tests that you missed and all that jazz. So,
sure. Yeah.
It is a grind. And then the next day you're like, all right, I got 2 days until I leave, got to get back on the grind, get ready for the next course I'm playing. So yeah, it is. It's a heavy load, and I love it. I mean, it's helped me learn to manage my time well. You just can't waste any time.
Okay.
As a college golfer, you got to be able to manage your time so well, and it's helped me learn that. And just being efficient with doing my schoolwork when I need to, and finding those little times to practice and work on my game. But yeah, I think being a college golfer is an absolute grind that a lot of people don't understand. And I wouldn't change it for the world, though.
I think a lot of people that casually follow the game, they'll see things on, maybe a golf week or the Golf Channel occasionally. Obviously, they put the national championship on front and center every year, and we'll get to last year's championship in a minute. But yeah, there are things they don't see. Maybe what's the one thing that no one will ever see? Perhaps even all of your teammates, or something that is just so hidden from maybe media or your friends or, like I said, other teammates. I mean, are we talking about, 9 p.m. and 10 p.m. sessions at the practice facility?
We like to, they don't like us to stay too late up at Trinity. I think we leave probably around, 8 at the latest.
Sure.
But I think what a lot of people don't see is, staying up until 2 o'clock studying for an accounting test the next day, after I've just gotten back from a tournament on Sunday.
Right.
It's those things, finding those, hour-long periods in between classes to go and grind out, a homework assignment so you can stay a little bit longer to practice. It's just those little moments where, you're just trying to stay afloat, and stay ahead. Where a lot of people might be sleeping or taking a nap, as a normal college student, it's
right.
nice because you can space out your classes to where you can do your homework right after. But for us, we have to be done around noon every day for practice. So, we go school straight to practice, and then you got to get home and do your homework before the next day. So a lot of people they don't see the, you get home at 8, 9 o'clock after dinner, and you're doing homework until 1 o'clock some days, depending on what your schedule is the next day.
Well, we'll move on to what brought you to SMU, but I don't want people to think that you're just barely scraping by with like C's and D's and you're just barely staying eligible. I mean, you did win Student Athlete of the Year at SMU in your junior season. So let's just slow that down with how you can barely read or write. I mean, you got a 4.0 grade point average, right?
Yes, that's correct.
All right. I already don't like the way this is going because I try and all right, let's just move on. I'm getting aggravated here. So how did you get explain to me how SMU came into the picture? I mean, individual champion, co-champion on the high school level, coming out of San Antonio. I mean, there's a lot of great schools and programs like I'm sure you're well aware of in that Texas, Oklahoma. How did SMU get on your radar and ultimately become your choice of where you would go to play college golf?
I think it was probably my freshman year when I started just thinking about what I wanted in a school. And, I told my parents from an early age that I just didn't think a big public school was the place for me. I just didn't feel like, it would be a place where I would excel as well. And so, about freshman year of high school is when I decided that, I was only going to look at private schools, smaller private schools to play golf, regardless of if, they might not have been the strongest schools or for golf. I really had focused really hard on my academics in high school. And I knew that, that was just as important as golf for me, to be able to, get a degree in, some sort of business elective, whether I'm doing finance now, but to be able to do something that I love in the classroom, but also feel like I can have the best opportunity to excel on the golf course. And so I think from an early age up in high school and freshman, sophomore year, when I was really looking at colleges, I really narrowed it down to a bunch of private schools in Texas. So I was talking to a couple in California as well. But I think the thing that attracted me so well to SMU was not only, our business school is top notch, and I knew that I would be able to get an amazing degree and some amazing connections in Dallas. And then also, having our practice facility at SMU was up and coming. A lot of great players had already committed before me. And, I just thought, I just decided, that it was the best place for me. It was close enough to home to where I could, drive back home. It's about 4 hours, to come see my swing coach in San Antonio. But it was also far enough to where I didn't have to go home if I didn't want to. So, it checked all the boxes for me. I loved the coaches, loved the practice facility, and loved the academics and, the culture. So, at the end, in the end, I decided that was the best place for me.
You mentioned the practice facility has a pretty important name on it, the Payne Stewart Practice Facility. I'm guessing walking through there are some pretty impressive either pictures or plaques or quotes or trophies or all of the above. So I guess that is a place that you'd want to spend a lot of time in. Tell me something on the wall there that you walk past and you notice it every time. Can you pick one? Oh yeah, I can think of a lot, but okay. I think so. Obviously when you walk in, there's a huge sign that says Payne Stewart Practice Facility, and obviously, we've had some amazing players come through SMU before me: Bryson, Payne Stewart, Kelly Craft, Colt Nost. So many players. Harry Higgs, and right when you walk in, we've got a big trophy case right next to our locker room with all the trophies that the team had won in the past, individual trophies won by Bryson. And, so I think you walk in there and you see on top of this trophy case, we have probably 4 or 5 bags, tour bags. We've got Harry's bag and Kelly Craft's bag, Bryson's bag. And so you walk right in and you're like, wow, like a lot of good players have been here before me. Sure. So you get to see that every single day when you walk in. There's been a lot of history at SMU. I know that you mentioned that you're there, you don't want to really be there any past 8 p.m., but I'm sure that there are times when the nights get late, there's some sort of a putting or a chipping contest going on. There's got to be a guy in the team that just you don't want any piece of in a putting game at 8 o'clock at night. So let's learn a little bit more about some of your teammates. Who do you not really want to get a piece of? Because God forbid you lose, you're not going to. It's just going to get. You're not going to hear the end of it for a while. We've got this kind of tradition that we do when we leave. Me and my buddy Tyson. He'll be a sophomore this year, and a couple of other guys will join in sometimes. Every day before we leave the course, we'll throw on the TrackMan, and we'll either do a long drive contest or we'll do we'll see who can generate the most spin, most RPMs on like a 40-yard shot. And so usually we'll do it we'll play for like a milkshake or whatever, going home, a smoothie or something. Sure. And, it's just so much fun. We get in this bay and it's freaking pitch black in there, and we're just wailing on drivers out into the range. Poor guys are picking up balls on the range while it's dark, and it's just fun because we jab at each other back and forth. A lot of us do, and you don't want to lose in those contests because you will hear about it for weeks until you've won the next one. It is so great. So you winning an individual title at a collegiate event, that's high on the list, but it sounds like this is more bragging rights, doesn't it?
There's a lot of pride riding on these long drive contests in the Bay. It is absolutely hilarious how competitive we get in there.
You guys, this is really great. I'm learning a lot about the SMU program, where you guys are basically the equivalent of meatheads at a Topgolf. Perfect.
we get our work in sometimes too.
Okay, here it comes. I see. All right, no, that's good. Yeah. That's good. You got to let loose, and you got to kind of let things kind of decompress, because there's a lot of pressure out there. And
yeah, for sure. It's a fun way to kind of wind down after hot practice or a long practice, get inside and be able to do something fun.
Perfect.
For sure.
Perfect. Well, one of the tournaments, I mean, I don't want to go through every single tournament that you played in last season, and obviously this season's been interrupted, but you guys made match play at 2019 National Championship, and I mean, in the most dramatic fashion possible, you find yourselves in a very unique playoff with Clemson for the 8th and final spot in the match play portion of the National Championship. And like I said, it's a very unique playoff because and many listeners know that follow college golf at all, or ever played college golf, or even high school golf, really. Typically, it's 5 players, and the low 4 scores count. But in this format, 5 players, all 5 scores count, and that really tests the depth of your team, because nobody can hide. So if you shot 81 that day, tee it up again, because whatever you do is going to count. You're going to be in that playoff. What is the 5-10 minutes like between, okay, we're in a playoff, and okay, now we actually need to go do it?
Big 100,000-pound elephant in the room. The last hole of stroke play, I needed 2 putts for our team to go to get into match play, and these greens were rolling seemed like they were rolling 16, but I mean they were fast. And
sure.
This hole, I've got probably 30 feet down the hill, and if I run it 5 feet by, the ball goes 40 yards off the green. So I'm obviously nervous in a position I really had not been in my entire life, and leave it 3 feet short, and nice horseshoe job right back at me. So I'm obviously a little upset walking off that green. I feel like I've screwed my team. We fought so hard to get there. But my teammates, I walk up to them and they were all so unbelievably supportive of me. My coaches picked me right up and said, "We're still in this. I mean, we're not out of it." I did feel like I put us in that situation, but the amount of support I received from my teammates and my coaches was unparalleled. And that 5-minute, 10-minute drive back to the practice facility and clubhouse, where we were getting prepped for the playoff, where it was us. We got into this van and we threw on I don't remember what song it was, but we usually have a song each week that we listen to, that kind of pump us up. And
sure.
Coach Parra throws on I think it was Old Town Road by I don't know who that is. You know that song, right?
I know. Hey, listen, I'm 43. You better know it before I figure it out, because that's not helping your cause at all.
Okay, yeah. So he throws it on, and we are listening to it at full volume in this van, and
it's by Little Nas X, my favorite.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. You know it better than I do.
Oh,
and we throw it on. We're all just singing it. And I mean, it didn't even feel like we were about to head into probably the biggest hole in our entire life.
Sure.
It was such a great way to kind of decompress after the amount of stress that I'd caused myself on the last hole. So we were, I don't know what Clemson was doing, but we were having a blast getting ready for that playoff.
So so that playoff, did you just play 18?
Okay. So yeah, each one of us went out and played. So I was paired up against Bryson Nimmer, on 18, and each one of our guys was put on a hole against another Clemson player. I think based on what you started the week at, on the team, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Right.
You were paired against the respective 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 player on Clemson, and so we had Ollie on 1, Jackson was on 16, Jackson was on 15, Ben was on 16, and Noah was on 17, and so we're all playing on our respective holes. We had no idea what anyone else is doing.
Wow.
And it was the craziest experience I've ever been in. And I think what helped us the most, we right before we all kind of head out to our holes, coach kind of puts us together and we all kind of getting pumped up, and he goes, you know what, you guys don't worry about your teammate. Everyone focus on doing your job. And so I just felt like I was in a playoff against Bryson. I didn't think anyone else was in the playoff. I just kind of focused on what I was doing on 18. Obviously a brutal golf hole. Hit a great drive and an amazing 7-iron to about 15 feet. And, the rest of the team got it done. We think we beat them by, it's like an aggregate 5-hole total.
Yeah.
And,
I think you beat them by like 3 or 4 or something like that.
I think we beat them by like, yeah, exactly. two, 3 or 4. And, that was the most gratifying, experience of my entire life, to be able to, after doing what I did on 18 for my team to get through, I've never felt as much relief as I did walking off that 18th hole after getting, doing my job and making a good par on 18. But my team, we bonded together, and Ollie made a absolute bomb 20-footer for par, walked it in. I mean, this guy never shows any emotion, and I watch him absolutely tiger walk this ball. And on hole 1, I mean, it was absolutely nuts. It was so much fun. I mean, so much emotions. I think they showed our reactions after we had won the playoff, and I mean, our coach was crying, and I mean, we were all jumping up and down, running down fairways. I mean, it was a roller coaster. But I mean, to be able to just make it to match play was so cool.
Yeah. No, I'm really glad you shared that story. It's such a crazy setup, because you spend the entire year as a team, and then for this playoff to get into the most important part of the season, the match play of national championship, they separate you all onto your own individual hole, cordoned off from each other with no idea what's going on.
No, yeah, that was pretty mean, honestly.
It's just odd. It's just really odd.
Yeah, it really was. I mean, I'd never even heard of a playoff like that before, but it honestly ended up being so much fun.
So you just mentioned, just so emotional, and just, trying to keep track of your emotions at that point. I mean, just all the ups and downs. Does freshman Mac Meissner handle that way? Like, if you're in that situation of freshman, like, how have you grown as a player? And I don't mean, lengthening your swing, or how have you grown as a player since starting at SMU?
Yeah, that's a great question. My Coach Parra and I, and, my parents, my coach Brian Gathright, we have worked extensively on improving my mental side of the game. I came in as a freshman, and, I was pretty emotional out there. I mean, I wouldn't like cry out on the course, but I mean, I would get pretty upset at myself. I expected a lot, and to be able to have to play for a team, I mean, that puts a lot of emotions on your belt.
Sure.
Each round, just trying to perform for all 4 of those guys, 5, 6 of those guys, including the coaches. So I think what I've learned over the 2 years that's been the most valuable to me is knowing that, going and doing my individual job, staying in each shot, staying positive, and just grinding out a round, even when you don't have your best stuff. And that's what we did. I mean, the national championship, to be able to, come off that missed 3-footer. A lot of people wouldn't be able to recover from that.
Nope.
And, to have my coaches, my parents, my best friends, in the world right by my side, giving me hugs and, smacking me and being like, all right, let's go. I think that is the coolest thing in the world, to have people by your side who support you, even when you feel down, pick you right back up. And they picked me right up. And, freshman Mac, I don't know if he would have been able to handle that. Honestly, I really don't. And, that would have been a lot to handle, and it still was a lot to handle. But
Sure.
To be able to come off of that and play that 18th hole as well as I did in that playoff, I think I proved a lot to myself that day, that I had made a lot of growth in 2 years as a golfer, as a college golfer. So.
Well, that that had to be just a very special experience. I mean, I know the first round of that match play, you run up against. I mean, gosh, you run up against a buzzsaw. You run it's Oklahoma State and Wolf and Hovland and Eckroat and the boys. And I guess if the season's got to end, that's not a bad way for it to end against arguably one of the best collegiate teams, I think, in history. I mean, I know that they didn't get it done, into the finals. Texas upset them on their way to losing to Stanford at the end, but that's a hell of a run. Before we talk a little bit about the U.S. Amateur that's coming up, and obviously you're playing in the Western, grueling week there, I can't not ask you a little bit about some fun stuff as far as golf courses you have been able to play as just being a collegiate golfer. So let's see, you've played the U.S. Amateur in 2018 at Pebble Beach. Check that. Tell me about your visit to Pine Valley. Let's get everyone as jealous as possible. I mean, All-American SMU and 4.0 grade average, and let's keep it rolling. Talk to me about Pine Valley.
Oh yeah, here we go. I mean, that place is I mean, I can't even explain how ridiculous that place is. It is the amount of history, the amount of, I mean, they've got these massive trees everywhere. I mean, just the beauty of this golf course. It's so cool. I mean, you have to wear a suit or a jacket in the clubhouse.
Yep.
I mean, it is every golfer's dream, and it's one that I had on my bucket list for a long time. And we had some really gracious hosts who took us out there for a weekend, and we had the full experience, got to play the par 3 course, which is, I mean, might be just as cool as the golf course. It's amazing. You're in and it's so funny because you drive in, and you drive past a water park to get into this, literally the most prestigious country club or golf club in the world. And you're driving past this massive water park to get in. It is like the biggest oxymoron in the entire world. You come into the gates, and I mean, it's just like a whole different atmosphere. Everyone's just there, for golf, and it's just all about the history of this place. And, it was a blast. I got to play it. We could play 2 rounds, and actually, it is a lot harder than people think. Just by looking at pictures, it is probably one of the top 5 hardest courses I've ever played, and it didn't even have much wind when we were playing. It's super long, and the bunkers are extremely challenging. They don't rake the bunkers. It's just one of the coolest golf experiences I've ever had in my life, and I was so thankful we got to do that that was my freshman year, actually. Yeah, I'm like a month into my college experience, and I get to go play the top rated course in the country. I mean, that doesn't get much better than that.
That's pretty good. Let's see. Did Cypress Point top it?
Yeah. So we've also been lucky enough to, go up to Cypress Point. We play the Stanford event each year in the spring, and, I think it's the Monday after we get to go and play Cypress. And, that golf course that's another golf experience on its own. I mean, it's very different from Pine Valley, but, you're there, and you go and you hit balls on this tiny little range that's just right of the first tee. And then you go and play one of the coolest golf courses in the entire world. It's like first 6 holes are up in the trees, and then the next 6 are in the dunes, and then the last 6 are right on the water. And it's just one of the coolest experiences I ever had. My first year out there, I was lucky to make a hole-in-one on the 7th hole.
Get out of here. Come on.
Yeah, dead serious. I don't even know how far the hole was. You don't get to have rangefinders out there. The caddies just basically tell you how far each shot is. And he's like, all right, yeah, just go hit like a 190-yard shot. So on the 7th hole, it's like this super uphill par 3. You can't even see the green. It's like a tabletop green and as big as like a carpet. I mean, it's tiny. And hit the 6 iron and my buddies Gray and Clancy were up on the 9th tee, right, and it sits kind of right on top of the 7th tee, and they both started screaming. And I was like, because I couldn't see it go in, and they're like, "You just made a hole in one at Cypress," and we go up there, and the ball landed like a foot short of the hole, and I guess hopped right in. So, one of the coolest experiences. I was with Coach Enlow, and I think I was with Jackson as well, and I think at that point I was like 7 under too through 6 holes. I had gotten off to a ridiculous start. my freshman year in college, and I'm getting to play these courses. It's so remarkable. Our coaches do such a great job of giving us the most amazing experiences, taking us to the coolest places, and I'm so thankful for it.
That sounds pretty good. Pine Valley, Cypress, Pebble, got Bandon coming up. So before we move on to the USAM this year and what you're doing to prepare for it, because actually you and a couple of your teammates are actually probably going to be some of the very few participants that have experience on the dunes and the trails course. So I definitely need to ask you about that. But one other unique experience that you've had is you've played Busch Cup, which is just a kind of a dual team match format tournament that really started about 5-6 years ago. It's in honor of President George Herbert Walker Bush. I think it started at Wingfoot. There's typically it's Army against another school, whether it's Yale or Stanford, Northwestern, and then in the fourth version of this was at Trinity Forest, where you took on Army. And obviously your home course, you guys won the Cup, actually dominated them pretty strong, but I got to ask you, the recipient of their humanitarian award that evening was Mr. Jim Nance. And obviously Jim and I are in the same business, and boys, there's some sarcasm in that statement, but what was, give me the whole experience of just being there for not only to play the golf, but just for all the activities that are surrounding this event.
Yeah. So there's a great story behind that. We had dinner at the George W. Bush Library, which is right on our campus at SMU. It's an amazing library with these massive banquet halls, and so in one of these massive halls, and I guess you could call it, biggest, highest ceilings, we have this amazing dinner. We're sitting on this huge table, super long table, and each one of us is sitting across from a player on the Army team, and they're wearing their uniforms, of course. It's so amazing. And so, we go through this dinner, and at the end, Jim, they honored Jim Nance for his award that he won. And, George W. Bush actually spoke for a little bit as well. He's such a nice guy. We got to meet him, and Jim Nance comes up, and, he's talking, gives an amazing speech. And then at the end, he goes, "All right, I'm going to announce each one of y'all. I'm going to introduce you like I would, like in the Masters."
Oh, no.
And we're like, no way. Like, this is pretty remarkable. So he goes through each one of us, and, he go through and be like, "I'm from San Antonio, Texas, Mac Meissner, wins the Masters," and it's just like, he's, and he for each one of them, he had something different to say. I don't know how he had so many ideas in his head, but he must be pretty good at that. So we go through everyone, and he announced like all 30 of us that were there, all 30 of the guys. And in his, he's obviously got like one of the best announcing voices of all time.
One of them. He's tied for first, is what you're saying.
Second, of course, to you.
There we go.
And so, yeah, that was just like, that's something that you just don't get to experience every day.
Oh, yeah.
Something that, I've held on to that memory. My parents took a video of him saying my name, introducing my name. It's just like, it was one of those moments that I'm going to remember forever.
Sure. Hopefully someday he's doing it in Butler Cabin for real. So that would be that'd be pretty cool too. And then
that would be awesome.
And then you get to play Augusta for the rest of your life. So then you check off all the boxes. So you're good.
Let's hope so.
Well, one way to get there, this is perfect segue lead into one way to get to Augusta National is you get into that final match of the U.S. Amateur, and you're heading out there in a couple weeks or 3 weeks to to play at Bandon Dunes. You and your team played in the Bandon Dunes Championship last year. And like I said, you and Noah Goodwin and Ollie Osborne are going to be at this year's USAM. You three have experience. Not only, I mean, there's several courses out there, but you have experience. You have played the dunes. You've played the trails. Now, you played it in March, so there's going to be different weather than what you're going to experience in August. Maybe not drastically different, but it'll be somewhat different. Gosh, where do we start? What were your expectations of Bandon? Had you been there before? I mean, walk me through just leading up to getting there.
Yeah. So, I mean, obviously it's like a trip to get there. You gotta fly into San Francisco, and then you fly into this tiny regional airport, and then take like a 45-minute bus ride. It's like, you really gotta want to get up there to get up there. I mean, it is an entire trip in itself. And, you get there. My dad he'd gone up there with some of his friends, played there probably 4 or 5 years before. And he kind of told me, it's just enjoy it. I mean, you're going to get blown over by the winds. You're going to get, you're going to make some ridiculous numbers. But, I mean, that's just part of that place. And, I mean, you get out there and, you got 7 or 8 holes at Bandon on the ocean. You can see the ocean from, I think, each hole on Bandon. And, the weather sometimes isn't great, but it's just so amazing up there. You don't even care. The courses are, actually Bandon is so much fun. It requires so much creativity around those greens and hitting shots into the wind. And that's something that I'm getting super excited for, because that's something I'm pretty, that's something I've always taken a lot of pride in my golf game, is just being able to be creative and hit shots. So I played pretty well there. The last round of that tournament, actually, we get on to the first, I think it was a shotgun start because the weather was supposed to be that bad that day. And we get on the 6th hole is this
I
par
was going
3.
to ask you about the 6th hole. That's funny that you're actually mentioning that,
Yeah,
because I have that in my notes, because I'm looking at the scores of that tournament, and everyone, not just your team, every team, I don't know what's going on at the 6th hole. Is there like a clown's mouth and a windmill? What's going on in that 6th hole?
Yes, there exactly was. There was a clown's mouth and a windmill, it felt like. So we get out there at like 8 o'clock in the morning, super early. We're hitting balls in the rain. It is just dumping rain. It is blowing like 30 miles an hour. I mean, I don't want to be out there. None of us want to be out there. Right. We're like, what the heck is going on? It's like 45 degrees. And so we get shuttled out to the 6th hole. We start on the 6th hole. Yeah.
Oh, no.
Awesome. And it is blowing. I'm not kidding. It's out on the ocean. Like, it's literally as close as you can get to the ocean as possible. I mean, you're right on the cliff. And it is actually blowing 45 miles an hour on the first hole. And Noah goes, he goes first. We were like an A and a B or whatever in the shotgun.
Right.
He goes off first, and I think it was 130 yards. I remember this actually perfectly. And Noah hits this low 7-iron, and it starts low and then literally takes a 90-degree angle straight up into the air. And he comes up I think he came up like 30 yards short, and I think he made a bogey. And I was like, all right, so this is fine. That was a fine bogey to start. And then I step up, and our group steps up. I think the guys in front of me, I hit last, and I'm like, this is a 5-iron from 130. I'm not even kidding. And I step over the ball, and it starts sleeting rain. And
play hard.
And so I go and step under the umbrella. We all kind of stop for a little bit, and we wait for it to stop. I think it was like 10 minutes and of just a full sleet. And I step back over my ball, and I'm like, okay, it's still blowing 45 degrees out here. So that 130 is playing about 190, I guess we'll say. God. And pull out a 5-iron, and just did not commit to it, and I hit it out to the right and flew straight into a gorse bush and had to retee. I think I made a double on the first hole, so good start. But you're just playing out there in that weather, and you're you're just trying to survive. But you're just you can make so much. You can have so much fun playing in that weather, even though it wasn't a lot of it wasn't a lot of fun to be hitting shots in that. But we had a blast that day. I think Parra walked with me for a little bit, and we just basically survived. And I think I fought pretty hard and shot like, I don't remember. I think I shot like 4 or 5 over. But just to be able to play in those conditions, I had really never played in that. I think was such a good experience. Just learning that you just gotta be able to keep the ball down and hit just ridiculous shots that you would never hit in Dallas. And I think it prepped me pretty well for this week or this next couple of weeks. I'm really excited to be able to get back out there and give it another go.
Yeah, well, I mean, you had a good tournament there. I mean, you top 10, I think, T9 with a lot of other players, and gosh, I mean, just to be able to get out there, I'm guessing the fact that you're not going to be completely eyes wide open. Oh my gosh, look at this place. A lot of the people out, a lot of the players. I mean, the best amateurs in the country. It's going to be the most competitive U.S. amateur in history because everyone's there on an exemption. So there's no 15-year-old that catches fire at his local qualifier because it's his home course, or some 40-year-old that careers it. I mean, everyone there is there for a reason. So for you to not have the whole wow, I've never seen Bandon, you're not going to have that. So
yeah, exactly. It'll be nice to be able to go there again and obviously remember the good times of last year and that awesome weather, but just to be prepared for it. I think I know what I'm going to play. I've been there before. I think it makes it easier for me to prep for that tournament, knowing what I've got in store and what could happen, in that weather, and just being prepared to be as creative as I can and just make it work. I think is definitely going to give us a little bit of advantage going into that tournament.
Does it make a difference when I'm just curious, does it make a difference when you don't have to go through a qualifier where you just circle it on the calendar, or does it really matter because everyone's got to play the same course anyway?
So I've actually had to qualify three years in a row. Yeah. You have to make it to the quarterfinals to be exempt for the next year. So I've actually had to qualify 3 straight years for the USAM. I'm one of the few people I know that I love playing in qualifiers. I love the energy, knowing that you've only got 2 rounds to make it happen, and you go out and basically make as many birdies as you can. Yep. It's such a fun environment to be able to, not really, it's either you're in or you're out, and there's not much more on the line. You get to go and basically play as hard as you can for 36 holes, and I think that that's an environment, obviously, where I've played really well. But to be able this year to, obviously I wouldn't have had to qualify regardless, but to be able to know that I'm going there no matter what, I think makes it easier for me to just mentally prepare for the tournament. I mean, having to go through a qualifier is a lot of stress, and I mean, you don't know if you're going to make it or not. And so I've been getting myself ready for Bandon for a little bit longer than I would have if I had just had to play in a qualifier.
Yeah, no, absolutely. The only other person that I've spoken with where we got into this kind of a conversation about qualifiers that's said the exact same thing you did, almost word for word, about getting up and getting excited for qualifiers, because who cares if you don't make it, because there's just limited spots. The only one that's ever said that is Sahith Theegala, who just wrapped up one of the best college seasons of all time, sweeping 3 awards. So yeah, you're in good company. But yeah, he basically said the same thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's definitely, I mean, it's different, and you get to go out there, and you're really not playing for place. You're basically just going out trying to win the thing. And I think, I mean, that might be a learning lesson for playing in normal tournaments. Just I think it's so easy to just get complacent and playing in stroke play tournaments. Say, top 5 would be nice, top 10 would be nice, but obviously going in with the mindset of trying to dominate, win the thing, I think sets you up really well.
It served you well so far, and you picked up, like I said, you pick up the win at Southern, and you're trending in that right direction where all things are pointing towards a successful USAM. Who's caddying for you at Bandon?
So I had my dad on the bag at the Southern, and he's going to caddy for me at the Western as well. But as of now, unless me and my dad do something ridiculous at the Western, I'm going to have my long-term coach, Brian Gathright, caddy for me at the USAM. He actually caddied for me in my qualifier for the USAM last year, and we were really successful, and I think we're a pretty good team. So I'm excited to get that going in a couple weeks.
Nice. Well, Mac, really appreciate you taking the time. I know that you are getting on, you're starting your travel up to the Western tomorrow, and gosh, you're going to be on just a marathon from going from Texas to Indiana and then back home and then out to Oregon. So you're about ready to embark on a pretty busy schedule. So I'm really glad you took some time and were able to take some time to join me here at the back of the range. And man, all the best, and try and have some fun. I mean, it sounds like a challenge for you.
No, yeah, that's something that I've been so lucky to be able to play golf and do what I love, and why not have fun doing it? People, being able to play with some of my best friends, I think is something I've been so grateful for, and why not have fun? Absolutely. I mean, we're getting to play golf, so thanks so much. I really appreciate your time.
Absolutely. Well, good luck, and we'll definitely keep an eye on you at the USAM. So I appreciate you stopping by the back of the range.
Awesome. Thanks so much.
And there you have it. Special thanks, Mac Meissner. Awesome conversation. Really looking forward to meeting him at the US Amateur. I think he's going to do great things there and beyond as he finishes up at SMU. Don't forget, follow along on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. I will be at the United States Amateur at Bandon Dunes. A lot of photos, a lot of video, a lot of interviews. So make sure you're following there, and make sure you're following on all of the USGA social media channels as well. And don't worry, I do have some special episodes set to release during the US Amateur. Won't leave you hanging. So make sure you follow along, and I'll see you next time here at the back of the range.